The Detroit Lions taking down the Green Bay Packers last night means that it certainly looks like the Eagles are sort of destined to be the number 2 seed in the NFC. Daniz, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a fait accompli, but it feels that way.
Yeah, I mean it was one game, but it's kind of two. It was kind of 2 games, right? Because that was the last game the Lions had against a common opponent with the Eagles, and they were 4-1, and the Eagles were 4-1. And they each had 1 game left against common opponents, and that was theirs, and the Eagles still played Dallas as the last one. So it was the last chance the Eagles had to win that tiebreaker, and that was going to be the tiebreaker that mattered if it was 15-2. What's going to happen now if both teams finish 15-2 is that's going to be tied, and it's going to go to strength of victory, and the Lions' strength of victory is going to be one of the best ever because they're in like the best division in history and all this kind of stuff. And the Eagles is terrible. So it's not going to be close. And the Lions are easily going to win that tiebreaker. And so basically, the long story short, the Eagles can no longer win a 15-2 tiebreaker against the Lions, and almost certainly won't win one against the Vikings either. And so would need the Lions to lose twice now. If the Lions had lost last night, that would have been enough. Like the Eagles would not have needed any more help from the Lions losing. Instead, now they're going to have to lose twice. And they do play the Bills next week.
Their schedule, just to say it out loud, they play Buffalo and then Chicago, at Chicago, and then at San Francisco,
right?
Potential, and then they close in Week 18 against the Vikings at home.
Yeah, and there's a chance San Francisco is still playing for a wild card spot. I mean, they're 2 games behind now, but like there's you never know. And yeah, I mean, it's not like the Lions have been killing teams the last couple of weeks. I mean, they were before. But these last 2 games have been very frustrating to watch. Like, especially, they were standalone national TV games like everyone's watching. And it really seemed like there was a decent chance they were going to lose both of those, and they didn't lose either one. But so that's what the Eagles need at 15-2. The one thing that the Eagles can still win a tiebreaker against the Lions, but it would be at 14-3. And that would only happen if the Eagles losses to the Steelers. Okay. And the Lions lose 2 NFC games, because then NFC record is actually an earlier tiebreaker than common opponents. Right now, neither team has any AFC losses, but if the Eagles lose to the Steelers and the Lions beat the Bills next week,
but they lose 2 other games, right?
Yeah, then they would have to lose 2 other games, right? Exactly. So I mean, if those 2 games are at the same time, by the way, I did check that they're both at 4:25 next week. If the Lions beat the Bills, the Eagles Steelers game is like one of the lowest leverage games, because like winning the game means you don't have the tiebreaker, losing it means you would have the tiebreaker, so it almost doesn't matter if you win or lose in terms of the race with the Lions. But in terms of the race with the Vikings, it would matter still. So, and
on the other side of it, very unlikely the Eagles would get caught for the 2 seed.
Yeah, right now, like the 2 seed requires, first of all, the Eagles clinched the NFC East with like any of the following things. Like just beating Washington would be enough, even if every other game goes wrong. Beating Washington would be enough. Any combination of 3 Eagles wins and Washington losses is going to be enough as well. So it could be over by as early as next week. Washington has a bye this week, but if they lose next week and the Eagles win 2, the NFC East would be over 9 days from now.
Okay.
And then in terms of the 2 seed, getting the 2 seed only requires 2 more wins, and then like Seattle losing once.
Right.
And that's it. And I mean, so it really seems very likely. The playoff seeding probability models that are out there have the Eagles as anywhere between 80 and 90% at being the 2 seed, and the rest of it is basically the 1 seed. There's almost no chance of being lower.
Now, there is, if you want to be silver lining about it, there's a path here where, like, if you fight to the end for the 1 seed, they're alive Week 18, but they don't get it, then all of a sudden, like, you're playing your guys, and then you got to play the next week. Whereas if you are sort of sailing towards that 2 seed, there's a possibility that you might even get 2 weeks at the end of the season.
You can rest guys.
Resting guys?
2 weeks is unlikely, because you still only need the Lions to lose twice.
Right.
So for it to be 2 weeks, the Eagles would have to fall further behind.
Okay.
As long as the Eagles keep winning, they're still going to have a chance going into the last 2 weeks, because you only need the Lions to lose 2 times. So, and as long as they have 2 games left, they can lose 2 times. Now, I've been getting a lot of people asking me like when's the earliest they can be locked into the 2 seed? Everyone's very interested in the rest. I keep on wondering how to feel about that, and I was trying to figure out yesterday why I didn't know how to feel about the Eagles being the 2 seed, and so I looked it up. The Eagles have made the playoffs 26 times since seeding started in 1975. Do you know how many times they've been the 2 seed?
Once.
And it was in 1980 when I was a 2-year-old in Ankara who had never heard of the Eagles or American football or even America. So that's why I don't know how to feel about it, because I've never experienced it as a fan. I don't know what this whole 2 seed is. I don't know like who gets the 2 seed. It's never been the Eagles. So they've been the 1 seed 5 times, the 3 seed 5 times, the 4 seed 7 times.
Well,
and
of course,
so on.
this iteration of the 2 seed is different because you don't get
There's
you don't even get the
that
bye.
too. You don't even get the bye. Now it's I will say this: the 2 seed is. It used to be impossible to have 3 home playoff games.
Right.
Now you can actually have 3 home playoff games. The Chiefs did in 2021.
Right.
They were the 2 seed. The Bengals knocked out the Titans. They were the 1 seed that year.
Yes.
And so the Chiefs got to host the wild card round, the divisional round, and the championship game. They lost the championship game, but they got to host 3 playoff games in a row.
You can game it out where that's the Green Bay goes to Detroit and gets their revenge and wins that game, and then has to come to Philadelphia.
And in particular, with 4 of the last 5 regular season games at home, I mean, it would, like, just the insanity of 5 straight weeks of home games and 7 out of 8 would be crazy. But yeah, I mean, and yes, you could argue maybe the 2 seed will get a more favorable divisional opponent than the 1 seed will, because like those two kind of bobo
Minnesota
divisions.
or Green Bay wins at 6 and beats the 3 seed, then they have to go to 1 anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And if one of those bobo division winners wins, then that team would come to the 2 seed, like not to the 1 seed. And so like Atlanta or whatever, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still don't know how to feel. I still have a headache, and
my only take here is after having watched that game last night.
Yeah,
I'm going to be really disappointed if we don't get Eagles-Lions. I want to see these 2 teams play. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a
observer from the outside. I think if you're an Eagles fan, it makes sense to not want to have to go to Detroit. But I'm going to be disappointed if we don't get to see these 2 teams go head to head. I think that's. It has felt like the season has been pointing towards that all along.
For the spectacle, for sure. As a fan, like, you know, like I want to be putting on my toe warmers and going to the game on Championship Sunday, and that's what we've been used to here. Like, we've been hosting these games. The last time the Eagles traveled for a championship game was the Rams, like back in 2001, right? So, yeah, I mean, but for the spectacle, for sure, I think it's very clear that it's the best 2 teams in the NFC. And maybe the NFL, and for the spectacle, absolutely.
We all silly like the mayor.